Lay down and relax. I shall read to you. Come closer, little human. Sit where my shadow is warm and my fire is kind. You. See these old eyes of mine. They have watched empires grow like summer weeds and collapse like autumn leaves. And of all the cities I have seen rise with such confidence, and fall with such stubborn pride, none roared quite like Rome. Humans remember Rome as elegant. They picture marble halls, golden armor, and banners snapping proudly in the wind. But I remember it as it truly was, loud, choking, and merciless. Rome was not a museum of beauty while it lived. It was a beast, a hungry one. A city that devoured weak bodies and ambitious souls with equal appetite. If I carried you back on my wings and set you gently in the streets of ancient Rome, the very first thing that would strike you would not be wonder. It would be the smell. Humans always forget the smell when they write history. Rome reeked of life packed too, tightly, and life, when crowded and unwashed, ferments into something cruel. Most Romans did not enjoy toilets or drains as you do now. Waste was collected in pots, beneath beds, and tossed into the open streets. When rain fell, it washed filth away. When it did not, the streets cooked beneath the sun, like a stew no dragon would dare. Taste. I flew low sometimes, and even my ancient nose burned. You, soft of lung, and accustomed to fresh air, would gag on Rome before your first sunrise. And then there is the noise. Oh, little human, your world complains too easily of sound. Rome never slept, not once. Wagons rattled through the night, sellers shouted, dogs barked, drunks sang badly. Soldiers marched when the stars were still warm. There were no quiet districts, no soft evenings. The city breathed noise the way dragons breathe fire. You would long for silence the way drowning men long for air. Even in your dreams, the city would climb inside your skull and rattle around. Then comes the law, and here I must lower my voice, because Rome's law was sharp. There were rules, yes, and order, and documentation, but fairness that was reserved for the wealthy. If you were born rich, Rome wrapped you in its arms. If you were born poor, it wrapped you in chains. Slaves were not rare curiosities. They were Rome's engine. Millions lived as tools instead of people. And even citizens lived cautiously, for one ill-spoken word to the wrong official could empty your home, erase your name, or end your life. Justice did not bow to truth in Rome. It bowed to gold. I watched trials from rooftops. I watched men plead logic to deaf stone. And I learned that Rome did not punish guilt. It punished weakness. Before you drift too far into dreams, little human, a small favor from an old dragon. If you've enjoyed resting here beneath my wings, consider subscribing to my horde of stories. Each new believer helps me gather more treasures and avoid ravaging cities for loot when I'm low on funds. I'm retired now, and my back makes sounds that haunt even me. Ah, and medicine. Humans sometimes amuse themselves by mocking the healers of the past. But if you'd sat where I sat, watching desperate doctors wrestle pain with blind faith, you would not laugh. Roman medicine shimmered with both insight and ignorance. They knew herbs, bones, and wounds well enough, but they did not know disease itself. They believed sickness hid inside your blood, like rot in a barrel. And so, they drained it. They cut without comfort. They stitched without sleep. Infection was not an enemy they understood. Childbirth was not a miracle. It was a gamble. You who are alarmed when your doctor frowns would tremble in a world where medicine was a hopeful guess at best and a fatal mistake at worst. Now, let us speak of food, because dragons are excellent judges of meals. In Rome, money decided flavor. The rich feasted beneath torchlight, while the poor gnawed stale bread and thick porridge. Clean water was precious. Wine was safer than wells. Meat was a luxury and freshness a myth. Parasites dined with families. Entire households lived on olives and courage. I have seen dragons eat better from battlefield scraps than Roman children ate from their own bowls. And then, of course, entertainment. Colosseum. So many humans look upon its bones and sigh with admiration. I look upon it and remember the sound. The screams echoed far enough for even me to hear them from. The hills. Gladiators were not heroes. They were possessions. Animals were dragged across continents only to die confused before shouting crowds. Criminals were punished publicly. Execution became ritual. The arena did not celebrate skill. It celebrated suffering. You who cover your eyes from scratches would shatter beneath Rome's applause. I should also tell you, little human, about one of Rome's quietest cruelties. Fire. Not the kind I breathe, which is at least honest and quick, but the slow, sly kind that crawled through Roman neighborhoods at night. Buildings were built close together. There, wooden bones dry as tinder. A single lamp tipped over could wake half the city in flame. There were no grand fire brigades as you know them now. No alarms to warn you. When fire came, it came like a thief in the dark. Families fled into the streets barefoot, clutching children as smoke swallowed what little they owned. I watched entire districts vanish before dawn, while men fought more with panic than with water. You, accustomed to firefighters, sirens, and safety laws, would find Rome's infernos terrifyingly sudden. And worse still, many fires were not accidents at all. They were invitations. Landowners burned poor districts to rebuild richer ones. Power, little human, is sometimes quieter than fire, and far more dangerous. Then there are Rome's streets themselves. You imagine wide avenues and grand plazas, but most Romans lived in tall, narrow apartment blocks stacked like honeycombs. The higher you lived, the poorer you were. You climbed dangerous staircases to tiny rooms where air barely moved and light struggled to survive. Collapse was common. One badly built wall, one weakened beam, and entire families vanished beneath dust and stone. The lower floors belonged to shopkeepers and wealthier tenants. The upper floors, nearest the gods, they joked, belonged to those with nothing but luck keeping them alive. I once watched an insula collapse like tired paper, while people still slept inside. Rome did not pause. It built around the rubble and forgot the names beneath it. You, little human, would find that worse than death. Being crushed and then erased. And, disease. Rome was a city where illness never truly left. Crowded living, filthy, water, open waste, and constant travel invited every sickness imaginable. Plagues arrived quietly and stayed loudly. One cough in a marketplace could carry death into 100 homes. Physicians argued, priests prayed, bodies piled. There was no understanding of bacteria or cleanliness. People bathed together in shared water. They wrapped wounds with dirty cloth. They trusted charms as much as knowledge. I watched streets empty without warning, entire neighborhoods silenced by fevers and blotches. And when disease withdrew, it left scars thicker than any wall Rome ever built. You who worry when the air feels wrong or a stranger sneezes could not endure a city that breathed sickness as naturally as smoke. And yet, do you see, little one? Rome did not fall because it was cruel. Rome endured because humans are stubborn. They carried babies through smoke. They sang in rooms that might not stand another winter. They joked while hungry. They held hands in plague streets. And you carry another kind of strength. You live not because you must, but because thousands before you survived long enough to make this world gentler. And that is a miracle far greater than empire. Privacy itself was rare as dragon tears. Romans bathed together, used shared sponges, ate together whether they wished it or not. Families slept in heaps of breath and sweat. Doors were thin, silence thinner. You treasure being alone. Rome would never allow it. And yet, I do not tell you this to mock the past. I tell you this because Rome lived despite it all. Despite plague and fire and greed and madness, Rome endured. Lovers still found one, another in candlelight. Poets still pencil-carved softness from stone words. Children still learned how to laugh. Humans, astonishing creatures, learned how to live even inside a monster. And you were born somewhere else, in a gentler age. You wash without fear, sleep without watches, drink water emperors would have murdered for. You type into glowing crystals and summon meals from thin air. You complain, yes, but you complain safely. You suffer, yes, but not soaked in sewage and crowned by noise. So no, little human, you would not survive ancient Rome. But you were never meant to. You live in a kinder world, a fragile world, but softer, and softness. Softness is a kind of magic Rome never learned. Now, come. Rest where dragons rest. Let history loosen its grip. Sleep beneath my wings. Good night, humans.